How do you know if you're ready to start a business? I asked myself this question for years until I finally started my business 7 months ago and realized that this question is not actually helpful because it's not really what we're asking. What we actually want is permission to start a business, to feel less scared about starting a business, to minimize the risk of starting a business, and to set ourselves up for success. So let's talk about how to do that. And by the way, thank you to MaxW5229 for asking this question in the comments, because I think it's one that comes up for almost all of us on the journey to starting a business, and we have to move past it to get going. So let's get going. Now, if you're anything like me before I started my business, you'd probably like me to give you a list of things that either tells you check, yes, you're ready to start a business, or no, you're not ready yet, and here's what you need to do to fix that. Okay, well, if we were to make a list like that, what would we put on it? What would we consider ready? 7 months ago, I would have probably said something like, you have a great business idea that you've validated with potential customers, you have some kind of business plan, you have all the skills and knowledge you need to implement it, you have the right network and connections to make it happen, and you receive some kind of sign from the universe that it is time to start. None of these were true when I started my business. I didn't really have a clear idea. I had no business plan at all. I definitely didn't have all the skills and knowledge. I didn't have that strong of a network, and there was no sign, unless getting fired counts as a sign. And no matter what other criteria you want to put on that list, I think you would end up concluding that I was totally not ready. Totally not ready. But I don't think you actually need to be ready. And as I hinted in the beginning, I also don't think that's what you're really asking. I think what you're really asking is one of 4 questions. Can you give me permission to start a business? How do I stop feeling scared of starting a business? How can I minimize the risks of starting a business? And how can I set myself up for success? Nice. Now we can make progress. So let's go through and answer each of these. If you'd like someone else's permission to start a business, that means you have the desire to start a business, but not the confidence. You're worried if you're able to start a business, if you're skilled enough, if you're smart enough. And I relate to that because this is how I felt for the longest time. And all I can really say to that is, yes, I give you permission to start a business. But does that change anything? My guess is no, because you don't actually need anyone's permission. I think the one thing that really helped me overcome this need for permission was just taking a look at the people who already run businesses and realizing that they're not smarter than me or more skilled than me. The only difference is that they're just doing it. So just do it. Now, if you have fears around starting a business, how can you deal with that? The main thing I learned is that you cannot out-prepare your fears. Preparing more will never reduce your fears. I know that because 5 years of preparation, including a business degree, did not help my fears around starting a business. What actually helps is to just call out your fears and accept them, and slowly start doing more and more things that challenge those fears until they become irrelevant. One of my fears in starting a business is to be rejected by potential clients. The only thing that really helps to overcome that fear is to put myself in situations where I can be rejected, and then to get rejected and realize that it's not that bad. But, and this brings me to my next point, fears also have a purpose, which is to prevent harm, right? So if you want to minimize the risks of starting a business, that is smart and definitely something you should do. It's just important to know that this won't magically resolve your fears. So you need to do both, calling out your fears and challenging them, and at the same time listening to them and taking healthy precautions. Not obsessively, but to a sensible degree depending on your situation. And some things you can do are building up a runway of savings, which I did. I had about a year of living expenses saved up, and yeah, money solves most of your problems when you're starting a business. So 100% would recommend doing this, but decide for yourself what length of runway you need. You can simultaneously reduce your living expenses to be able to save even more and make the runway last even longer, which I also did. I was living on, I think, about a third of my income before, which meant I was able to save more, and I didn't need to replace my salary with my business, which would have been difficult to do quickly. I just needed to replace about a third. You can also build your business while you still keep your job, which I didn't do because I got fired before I could do that. But I am sort of creating a similar situation for myself right now where I have some clients that I maybe wouldn't want to work with long term because they don't really match the core business I want to build, but I can work with them for now to pay the bills until I have built up this new part of the business. So it doesn't have to be a job. You can also do the same with freelancing. You can also level up your skills in preparation, but here I want you to be really careful that you're not just doing this to over prepare and procrastinate out of fear. I think for the most part, you can just learn new skills as you need them rather than in preparation, but technically it could reduce the risks if you know a bit more than nothing about how to start and run a business. But again, this gets obsessive very quickly. It definitely did for me. I should have spent much more time just doing and experimenting rather than preparing and studying. And if there are any other big risks you see, make a list, come up with a risk mitigation plan, maybe get insurance for that risk or talk to a specialist or just save up more money, but make a plan and then put a check mark behind it and stop worrying about it. And finally, if you want to set yourself up for success, which is sort of the flip side to minimizing risk, I'd say, first of all, define what success means for you, because it means something else for everyone. And if you're taking advice from someone who has a different definition of success, it might not actually get you where you want to go. So you want to be clear on that. For example, my definition of success is a business that in the long run provides me with a comfortable living, gives me freedom in when I work and how I spend my time, doesn't require me to be available 24/7, makes a positive impact in the world, and allows me to use my skills and solve problems. My priority in the beginning is definitely to just make a living from it so that I can keep doing it rather than having to get another job. But I always want to be sure that there is a path for me to move towards my vision. So step 1 is defining success for yourself. And step 2 is to ask better questions. For example, if you want to start a business within the next year, a great question could be, what can I do to give myself the best chance of success when I start a business in 12 months from now? This is a great question because it's very specific and it also gives you constraints. You're not asking, what can I do to give myself the best chance of success, period, which could lead to years of preparation. You're setting a launch date to 12 months from now, preparing as much as possible during that time and then going for it. And I did actually ask myself that question when my plan was to stay in my job for 2 years and then start a business. And although I ended up starting my business much earlier than planned because I lost my job, it really helped me to even consider starting a business at that point. And although I hadn't gotten that far in terms of preparations yet, I did do some things like market research, building up savings, and continuing to grow my audience, which all helped me once I made the jump. By the way, I'm turning this into a little video series about the beginnings of starting a business where I share everything I'm learning. So let me know what other topics or questions you want me to cover. And if you decide that you want to move forward with starting your business, you might wonder what should be your next step. And I think the most important step to make progress is to ask the right question, which I talk all about in this video right here.